I have to start out this video by saying Nuxt has outdone itself once again. The developer experience already with things like auto imports, file-based routing, hybrid rendering, and more already made it a solid framework to choose for building an application. Well, they just added another reason to choose Nuxt with their newly released DevTools. So in this video, we're going to give it a first look, show you around its features, and see if it's worth all the hype it's been getting lately. And spoiler alert, it definitely is. Now, to get started using it, Nuxt will go ahead and prompt you to install it upon creating a new project if it's not already installed. Then within the Nuxt configuration, you're able to enable and disable it via the DevTool property. And for existing Nuxt project, you can go ahead and install it via this command. However, it's worth mentioning that you're going to need to be on at least Nuxt version 3.1.0 or higher to use them. Now, once you have this installed and you have your Nuxt project up and running, you're going to see this widget at the bottom of your screen. And this is something that I really like that the Nuxt team did with these DevTools because, for example, with the Vue DevTools to access these, we would have to go to the inspect portion of our browser. Then we'd have to come up here where we'd access our console or our network, and we'd click on this dropdown, and then we could select on the Vue DevTools. And honestly, for the most part, when developing with Vue, I forget about the Vue DevTools and I wouldn't use them. So always having access to the DevTools while developing in my browser has definitely made me use them more often, and I think it's a great feature by the Nuxt team. And if you don't want to keep it in the bottom left hand portion of your screen, you are able to click and drag this around the entire outside of your browser window. So the first thing to point out on this little widget that we have is this inspect tool. Now this is nothing new, and we actually have something similar within the Vue DevTools. However, Nuxt did take this a step further. So if we select the inspect icon to enable the inspect mode, we can now inspect our application. So if you hover over portions of the application, it's going to tell you the exact file that this code exists in and even the line that it's on. And you're even able to click on this highlighted portion of code, and it's going to open up the editor at that specific section. So if we click on this and we head back over to our editor, as you can see, we're now here on the header that we just went ahead and selected, which is pretty awesome, especially if you're not familiar with the project. You're able to go ahead and use the inspect mode and click around the application and have it take you to the exact line of code that you might need to change. And then also on this widget, we have a value to display the page loading time. And then we have this Nuxt icon, which if we select on this is going to open up the Nuxt DevTools. Now with this open, we're going to start at the very top and work our way down the navigation. So to start, if we click on this Nuxt icon, it's going to display a few options. So we have the ability to toggle the theme from light to dark, and they have a really cool animation for that. Then we can open up the settings if we wanted to, and also we can refresh our data or refresh the page. So next we have the Pages tab, which I actually find myself using quite often, and what this does is it gives you a list of all the different pages that you currently have within your application. So it'll inform you of the path of the page, it'll go ahead and give you the name of the page if the page has any middleware. So for example, in this application, on the editor page, I do have a middleware of auth being ran on that page, and then also the layout of that page. So as you can see in this application, I also have a few different layouts. And what's also really cool about this tab is you're actually able to navigate from here. So for example, on this editor path, it accepts a param of challenge ID. So what we can do is click on this and we can fill in the param. So let's, for example, give this a param of 1 and then click on navigate. And that's going to navigate us to this page with that param of 1. And lastly, inside of this tab, you're also able to see all the middleware that you have registered within your application. Alright, so moving down, we have the Components tab, which as you can expect are going to list out all the components that we have within this application. So we have the user components, then we have some runtime components, we have the built-in components, and then we also have components from other libraries. And if your application was a little bit bigger, you are also able to search for a specific component. So next we have the Imports tab, which can actually be pretty beneficial to see what is being imported within your Nuxt application, since Nuxt is going to auto import everything. So we have two different tabs. We have the built-in composables, and then we also have the composables from other libraries. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff being imported here, but only the stuff that's actually highlighted is being used. And to remove all this other stuff that's not being used, they actually have a filter up here or a toggle switch that we can enable, which I recommend, to show only what's being used. Okay, so the next tab we have is modules, and as you'd probably expect, this is going to list out all the modules that you currently have installed within your application. Now, the coolest part about this is you're actually able to install a new module into your application directly from the Nuxt DevTools. So if we select on Install New Module, And let's just search up a module. I know we'll use the color mode, which is going to be for a dark and light mode for your Nuxt.js application. So if we click on this, you can see we're going to get this little pop-up and it's going to tell you exactly what it's going to do. And then if we click on install, it's actually going to install that module for us here in our Nuxt application. We don't have to do a single thing. And as you can see, the Nuxt application is going to restart. And once we have that restarted, we should then have that module installed. And with that restarted, we can now see we have our color mode module successfully installed into our Nuxt application via the Nuxt DevTools. And to me, this is probably one of the top features that you get when using the Nuxt DevTools. So next we have the Assets tab, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's going to be for all the assets we currently have within our application. And if we wanted to view one of these, we can click on it, and then we're going to get a nice little preview here, and then also some additional details on that specific asset. Now, what's also cool about this tab is if you wanted to, you can upload an asset directly through this interface. So for example, if I take an image and I drag and drop it here, we can click on upload. And then once that has been uploaded successfully, we can come back over to our Nuxt icon, refresh the page, and then we can see we now added a new asset through this interface. Now next we have the runtime configuration, which is going to show the public runtime configuration as well as the private, and it also shows anything that's injected by third-party libraries. So for example, I'm using Supabase within this application, so if we expand this, then we can see all the values, and if we wanted to interact and change these, we can also do that. So for example, on this auth property, we have 3 different properties, and for example, if we wanted to change this auto refresh token from true to false, we can go ahead and do that. So next we have the Payload tab, which I find myself using quite often. So this is going to store all the state that we currently have in the application. So that can be from use state or use async data. So for example, in use state, we have the Supabase user from our Supabase module. So if we expand this, we're going to be able to see all the information about this particular user. And when we make API requests using use async data, we're going to be able to see the data that's being returned directly inside of this tab. So for example, on this page, I'm making a request to get the current challenge. And if we expand this, we can see what's being returned here from the API. So no longer do we need to do any console.logging. We can just simply come to our Payload tab, and then we can see what the API is returning. So next we have the Open Graph tab, and honestly this is probably by far my favorite feature that is included within the Nuxt DevTools, because when it comes to link sharing, it's often very difficult and it's hard to tell what exactly the preview is going to look like. But now right here inside of our DevTools, we can see exactly what the preview for this link would be if we were to share it on Twitter, Facebook, and even LinkedIn. So this will also show you all the current tags that it detects on this page, and it's even going to let you know what tags are missing. And what's really cool about this is for the tags that it detects are missing, it will provide you a code snippet that you can add into your component. So for example, if we were to comment out this use SEO meta and save this, and back here under the missing tag section, it now detects that those tags are missing, and it's going to provide us a simple code snippet we can copy and paste into our component and then change out the values to properly go ahead and format out our shareable links. And next we have the plugins, which is pretty straightforward, as it's going to display all the plugins that we currently have within the application. So this next tab holds some additional features along with some advanced ones. Now, the first feature here is actually one that's pretty awesome, which is a full-featured VS Code instance right inside of the Nuxt DevTools. Now, initially, you're probably going to see the screen saying that you need to install the VS Code server. So if you follow this link, then you're going to see some steps on how to install this on your Windows system. Now, for Mac users, what I found worked was to copy and open this link, grab the script, and then run it inside of the terminal. And once that's completed, you can then run code server, and it's going to ask you to verify the device on GitHub with the provided code. And with all that completed, you'll just want to restart your Nuxt dev server, and then you should be able to launch VS Code directly here within the DevTools. And now we'll be able to make changes within here, and we're going to see those updated within our application. Now, these additional 2 tabs within here are called module contributed views. These allow modules to contribute their own views directly here within the DevTools. So in this application, I have both Tailwind CSS and the Views module installed, and both have added their own views to the DevTools. So for Tailwind, it's a modified version of their documentation that we can reference, and for View Use, they provide a search page for all the available composables and to see their documentation. And the really cool part about this is if you wanted to add your own view, you can do so pretty easily, and I'll leave a link down below in the description to the documentation showing you how to do that. Now, for some of these more advanced features, the first one we have is called hooks. And hooks can be a very powerful tool if you want to analyze the performance of your application, because you're able to see what hooks are taking the longest, and then you can use this to start optimizing your application. Now, the virtual files tab is going to show you all the virtual files generated by Nuxt to support the conventions, and this can be very helpful for advanced debugging and to see what exactly Nuxt is doing under the hood. And lastly, we have the Inspect tab, and what this allows you to do is inspect the transformation steps of Vite, and this can basically help you understand how each plugin is transforming your code and allow you to spot potential issues. And lastly, here at the bottom, we have another way of getting to our DevTools settings. We can also get to it by clicking on the Nuxt icon and clicking on Settings. And within here, you have the ability to customize the tabs you're seeing here on the left-hand side. So if you want to turn off or turn on certain tabs, this is where you can do that. And then you can also change your theme if you want to have a dark or light theme. You can update the scale if you wanted to update your font size. And then you also have the option for a few additional features to toggle. Alright, so that's a quick run through of the Nuxt DevTools. So not only is UI for this, in my opinion, really good, it also offers some great developer experience. I've been using this pretty consistently over the past several weeks while developing my SaaS product, and honestly, it's been such a helpful tool. So if you're using Nuxt 3, I definitely recommend taking advantage of using the Nuxt DevTools. And also be sure to let me know down below in the comments what your thoughts are on the Nuxt DevTools and what your favorite feature is. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like on it down below. And if you're new here, be sure to subscribe for more content like this. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.